everyone. My name is Vitalina Saputri. Today, I would like to explain about analyze the city in the sea by Edgar Allan Poe with psychological criticism. Yeah, what is psychological criticism? Psychological criticism or psychoanalytic criticism took off in popularity in the early decades of the 20th century. Studies of the sense of psychology directed to literary works, and writers were introduced by Freud and continued with other outstanding theories of psychology such as Adler, Jung, Lechen, Fromm, and others. Likewise, writers and literary theorists such as and Holland also contributed to the psychology of literature. Psychology criticism itself in literature refers to the way in which the work of a particular writer is analyzed through a psychological lens, or in another word, it simply just takes the idea of psychology and applies them to literature. It is known that there are two ways to focus our psychology reading on the text. First, we can focus on the author and talk about how the text reveals the psychology of the author. Or second, we can focus on the psychology of the author. Or we can focus on the psychology of the character, like talking about what motivates the character to perform the action they do, what's going on inside the character's mind and else. Next slide. Yeah, this is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was an Australian obstetrician and the founder of the psychoanalytic school of psychology. According to Freud, the life of the soul has three levels of consciousness, namely conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. Sigmund Freud, who is famous for his psychoanalytic theory, um, was born in Moravia on May 6, 1859 and died in London on September 23, 1939. Gerald Cohen, in theory and practice of counseling and psychotherapy, explained that Sigmund Freud was the eldest child of a famous family consisting of 3 men and 5 women. In his life, he was forged by a father who was very authoritarian and with very limited money, so his family was forced to live in a theory from Freud. For now, I would to discuss the poem titled "The City in the Sea" by Edgar Allan Poe using psychological criticism, which I will focus to discuss the psychology of the character using Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious and the defense to explain the concept of conscious versus unconscious experience. Freud compared the mind to an iceberg. He said that only about 1/10 of our mind is conscious and next slide. Yes, for now, analyze first stanza. Yes, analyze for first stanza is in the first stanza of The City in the Sea, the speaker begins by using personification to describe it. He has created from himself a throne. It rests in a strange city that exists within the dim west. Yeah, for the land, lo, it has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest. Their serenity and tremble resemble nothing that is it's our own, believing when forgot, resignedly benefit the sky, the melancholy mercy. From just these first 3 lines, It is clear that Dit has a very important position in this landscape. His throne is somewhere strange and dim. It already does not seem like somewhere one would want to visit. The location is described further in the fifth and sixth lines, who makes use of accumulation to describe the West. It is the place where the good and the bad and the worst and the best find their eternal rise. It is the afterlife located as is often the case in the West, where the sun sets. Our word describes the shrines and glass and towers. He knows that they are time-eaten or so the progression of time. They are very old, but they don't tremble. There's no chance that they are going to collapse. It is as though they are immortally frozen as they are. They are very different from the buildings in our world. Next slide. Analyze to stanza. No rest from the holy heaven come down on the long night time of the dawn, but light from out the Red Sea streams up the torrent sound, glimpse of the pens from war and free and blah blah blah. And so the second stanza is also 12 lines. It goes into more detail about the city, the lake that restricts it, and what kind of lake on one will encounter there. The lake that hits the city does not emanate from the sky, but from the lurid sea. It has a vivid color, but not an especially pleasant one. The lake comes from the sea and touches the torrential sea. The quiet lake is expanded in the next lines as Poe used anaphora and more generally repetition to list out the place the lake touches. It falls and the tombs, spires, and kingly halls of the city. It also travels up shadowy long forgotten powers and many a marvelous shrines. Despite the dark description of this place, it also appears magically and strikingly otherworldly. Next slide. Yes, for next slide to analyze three stanza. The third stanza is only 6 lines long, half the length of stanza 1, 2, and 4. In this stanza, the speaker describes how the melancholy waters are resigned. They don't fight against their lot in life, nor do those in the city itself. Everything is blended into shadows in this place. All the towers in the city are contrasted with one spirit tower that belonging to it. He looks down gigantically from his front tower in the town. His residence has a different feeling to it than the others around him. Next slide. The fourth stanza of the city in the sea start with a description of open fence or circles and capping gravels. The use of alliteration in this line and other lines benefits the overall rhythm of the poem. It is especially impactful as the poem starts to conclude. Just two filters, the castles and the cliffs are open and level with the waves. Anyone could step into them and look what's inside, but no one does. The risk there that lie do not tempt the waters from their bed. The water could easily float and overtake those places, but it does not. The fact that um, there are risks in these two places to begin with is an interesting to consider. It speaks to a variety of sins as well as corruption. The weather is still, and as the speaker stated before, it is resilient and makes no move against the city. There are no replays that curl up from it, nor are there any swellings. Next slide. Suddenly, at the beginning of the first stanza, something changed. There is a movement in the water. It is no longer so hopelessly serene as it had been. The waters begins to glow around the city and things start to shift. The towers appear to have moved slightly, something very unusual as the rest of the poem should make clear. The light from the water changed, appearing redder than it had before. Time is passing differently. Its breath, also personal fate, is faint and low. As quietly everything else in the city begins to move. There are um, there are no earthly months of the ground shipping. Instead, the city begins to sink down, the settle under the sea. The last lines tell the reader that their city shall be held in reverence by hell. Next slide. Author use personification to show um use it as an actual character who rules in a lost city. According to Freud's theory of psychological criticism, the personality is influenced by three levels of consciousness, namely conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. Conscious is the level that contains all things that we observe at any given time. As it turns out, psychological criticism is analyzing literary work through the psychological condition of the author in the city. In the sea, Poe explores the themes of sin, death, and destruction. The tone and mood are both gloomy and foreboding, helping to create an appropriate gothic atmosphere for the text. The writer is Edgar Allan Poe, whose psychic condition is not good. This can be seen from his past being abandoned by his parents and continuing to live with his fathers and friends who can be said to be able for him. He is a sinner who likes to get drunk. Next slide. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.